the all-important topic that every Nigerian and, government official wants to know before the year ends. What are our spending plans for the new year? Various state governments have presented their own budgets before now, some like a month ago. Well, the almighty budget that everyone has been waiting for, the national budget, was presented yesterday by President Bola Tinubu to a joint session of the National Assembly. 58.18 trillion naira was that budget that he presented, based on a crude oil price of $64.85 per barrel and a production target of 1.84 million barrels per day.
And the aim, according to him, is to consolidate economic reforms and boost growth.
Yeah. So
he also says it's to stabilize the economy, improve the business environment, and all of that. You know, you give a big number. Big number. And it also raises big questions.
Well, those questions will be answered today. We have an array of beautiful minds, if I can put it that way, joining us this morning to talk about the budget, to break it down. You know, what the president did not say. Let's see if we can get more out of that. So
and what questions are we supposed to be asking? So,
beyond the figures, yes.
Yeah. So Dr. Ayode Jiebo is Managing Director, Chief Business Officer, MD of Optimus by Afrinvest. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you.
Mr. Shegun Shokwiton is an economist. He's here with us. Good morning. Thank you for joining us. Right beside him here, you see Mr. Sheson Okwade, Chartered Accountant and Policy Development Analyst. And we also have Dr. Samson Simon, an economist and Chief Economist of ARC Economics and Data Limited, joining us from Abuja. We'll get to him shortly. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thanks. Thank you.
Let me begin with you, Dr. Ebo. One of the criticisms, first of all, what's your view, your perspective of that, of the budget speech of Mr. President?
Okay, thank you very much. So, looking at the numbers relative to 2025, so when you look at the expenditure for 2025 at 60 billion, these are 58, looks like you say, okay, it's a bit realistic. But when you also look deeper into the numbers, so you look at the actual, because most times we talk more about the budget, but focus should be more on implementation, execution of this budget. So based on the numbers that was released yesterday, the government was only able to achieve 60% as at Q3. And what I try to do is to analyze it as an analyst, that at Q3, when you look at the revenue at about 18 trillion, when you analyze that, that's going to be about 24 trillion if you continue at that rate at the end of, excuse me, at the end of 2025. And you look at the expenditure too, and you also end at about maybe 34 trillion at the end of 2025. So you would see that it's a far cry. So you see, based on projected revenue of about 34 trillion naira, and projected actual in 2025 is about 24 trillion. It means you are trying to increase revenue by 10 trillion, which shows that there would likely be a gap. So you have expenditure about 58 trillion, projected revenue about 34 trillion,
so
which
leaves
a deficit of about 24 trillion. So I try to look at the total bonds and treasury bills that were issued this year. So far is about 20 trillion, 15 trillion for 15 trillion for the treasury bills, and you look at the bonds, about 5 trillion. That's about 20 trillion. So it's also showing that rates would be high next year because government will need to fill that gap. And 24 is what we're just projecting. And I like to focus on actual. By the time we come to actual, it means that there may be a gap of close to 30 trillion next year. But something that is also instructive is that we're projecting about 26 trillion for capital expenditure. And based on the numbers that were released yesterday, about just 2.4 trillion was released for 2024, 2025, about 3.1 trillion. So now we're trying to do 4 or 5x, which shows that in reality, government, we don't have the funding. And we'll get into that. How can government just face that reality?
You know, I like
we don't have that resources.
I like that you are looking at numbers, but we should be looking beyond the numbers. But before let's pay attention to the numbers a bit. You know, Mr. Sokoto, one criticism that has come forward so far is that we don't even know how the current budget performed, because according to budget referencing the law, we don't have an 2025 budget implementation report yet. And when I spoke with someone yesterday, I said, look, there's so much that the government has not been able to put together, you know, before they can even come up with that kind of report. I don't know how that changes the price of bread. The report has not been done. Do you think that is significant?
Yes, it's absolutely significant. In fact, I would say that it's critical. You know, if you're looking at economic management, being intentional and deliberate about driving economic outcomes for the country in a particular direction, the budget is the most critical policy document. Well, maybe not most critical, but it's a critical policy document. And the reason for what you alluded to, which obviously is a serious concern for any analyst, investment analyst, both local and international, is the lack of reporting as to what has been happening. Management consultants will say that what you don't measure, you cannot improve, right? So if you have not looked at what you've done with the budget of the last year, on what basis are you budgeting for the new year? Because you're supposed to look at the gaps, you know, in the last year. What did we say we wanted to do that we could not do? How much do we now need to budget to continue with that project, and so on and so forth? But there's no report as of now. Today is December 21, I believe. 20. Am I in a hurry?
20.
Yes, you are.
20.
Yeah, today is December 20. The year is over, you know. So for a lot of analysts, research analysts, strategy, you know, analysts,
development plan, economists and all.
Absolutely. The plans for next year are in high gear. In fact, some people have concluded. They've had their strategy sessions, they've concluded on those documents, they're already looking at implementation. And yet, the government has not laid before Nigerians what they're going to be doing next year. The reason you don't have an implementation report, one of the reasons is that even for the government, I think it must be a bit confusing, because they have admitted we're running a number of budgets at the same time, right? We're running the 2024 budget, believe it or not. The 2025 budget has been shifted. The execution of almost 70% of the capital expenditure in the 2025 budget has been shifted into next year. 70%, you know. So yes, they've executed or implemented a significant portion of the recurrent, you know, overheads and all of that. They must do that. But when it comes to capital spending, which is what drives development, 70% of that is going into next year. And yet we're already talking about a budget for next year. Embedded in the 2025 budget is the actual budget of, I think it was 47 thereabouts trillion, and a supplementary of another 6 trillion, which brought us to the 54 trillion that we talk about.
And that is before the National Assembly comes with their own.
Before the National Assembly then does whatever they wanted to do and all of that. So it's confusing. And for me, the real concern for me is there has to be more intentionality about cleaning up the budget process. One of the things that President Buhari did, to his credit, for those of us in the economic space, was he cleaned up this budgeting thing. Every year every year by the 1st of January, you are sure you have a budget for that year already signed and assented into law. And you knew what had happened with the previous year.
You know, there's usually that challenge of the end and the means, which one is really significant. But before we continue with this conversation we're having, Mr. Okwade, you know, Joke, when she was opening the other time, said a good number of the governors, if not all of them, have read their budgets. But our binoculars
is at the center.
Our searchlight is on the national budget.
National budget, yes.
Significant. So 2 questions I have. Number 1, How come we are not as scrutinous of the budgets of the states, who records show over the years have displayed a lot more lack of transparency, a significant measure of lack of transparency on the part of the state governments? Because I don't know if you know what was the budget of your governor last year. You know, so buttressing that, and so a good number of us, we're always looking at what the president is doing or not doing. Yeah. Meanwhile, we ignore the states. So that's one. How come we're not as scrutinous? The second leg of that same question is, I don't always see a nexus. I know that you will be excited to talk about it. We'll come back to you. Mm-hmm. I don't yet see a nexus between national development, between a nexus between the federal budget and the budget of states for national development or along a particular direction of development. I don't know if you think that's something to consider.
Yeah, AY, sincerely speaking, if I pick from where Shegun stopped, for a lot of us who analyze issue, few years has been very confusing, that those things you start asking yourself, possibly you need to go back to school and learn.
Do you really know it?
What we learn from school is budgetary process is always per annum. It's an annual thing. And those days we have been taught that government will always operate this zero budgeting process. So you start the cycle in January and you must end whatever it is in December. If there are things you've not actually actualized, that will be what Shegun was referring to. By third quarter, you have understanding of where you're going and things, because as at that period you're expected to be preparing the budget for next year, as a lot of us we do in our private sector, to say, okay, this is where we are. So today, this is the projection for the last quarter, knowing fully well that that's what Ayodiji was saying, that if you look at the projection by saying that end of Q3, you're already doing 18 trillion, plus and minus, as a private person, let's say we are able to work in the same pattern, we should be doing 24. So if we are doing 24, what actually can we not achieve that will be transferred into it? But Shegun raised something that is valid. As at 2025, we are still working with 2024 budgets, capital. 2025, we could only attain 30% of what we projected to do and transfer 70 of the capital to 2026. Sincerely speaking, I'm looking for an analyst that can untwine what we are actually facing currently, because I will tell you that we don't have a precise budget we are working with. My personal view. There must be something, the one that is actually being presented before the National Assembly. The question I'm putting before you is, where were we as at the end of 2025 that actually give the drive whether to increase in what we are going to project for 2026, or reduction in what we are going to do, or the direction that will mobilize the funds to generate some of those things. There is no direction, and that's what gives me cause for worries when those things are. And a lot of people have asked us the question, how will 2026 look like? And my question is, the way you are looking is the way I'm looking, because I don't even understand myself. So when we ask about the nexus between the states and the center, everybody is independent. Don't forget the state on their own, they are enjoying largesse. I can tell you, no governor, as we speak, is not happy with the center, because they all come out to say money is not their problem. They are more than blessed than what they used to have before the commencement of this administration, because of the removal of subsidy and the likes. But how many people ask questions about the spending of the states? What impact are some of those things? I heard you while you were making your intro on issue of insecurity and the likes. You have more funds as state governor. Don't let's go to the security vote. That's unaccounted for. You have more funds legally that you can say these are things that we're getting from FAC. But you're still crying foul out of insecurity, asking the center to come to your aid. Who does that? And it's because most of the time, a lot of us look at it's about the federal government. The federal government. the federal government. When do we look at the state? You've just asked a valid question, and it's difficult for me to answer. Now, what is the budget of my state?
So don't even answer. To that same question, because I think I know Joke wants to, but I know you would want to speak to that issue of how come we don't scrutinize the budget of states, which is the one that should concern us more, because they are closer. If for Abuja I have to take a flight or have long drive, but for my state government, no, I can take a bus and go to him in his office. The local government chairman is probably my next door neighbor and all of that. But with the ones that are closest to us, we don't seem to interrogate them.
Yes, I think really a very valid point. And one of the major reasons over time that most of us have not had interest in that is the lack of transparency. So apart from the high numbers of the high-level numbers you get of, okay, this is the total budget for the year and the expenditure, the breakdown, what is the plan? So if you ask, like we're asking, what is the budget for that state? Is there also a state development plan for the state that you can tie this with? Because that's part of what is happening. So you see most of the state governors will just increase that number. And thanks to the FAC allocation now in trillions, which is what Mr. Shegun was saying, in trillions, that when we check the rate of the FAC allocation has almost doubled. But when we look at development and impact, it's like it has reduced. So it means that there's a lot of leakages. We're not feeling that impact. And there's a need to continue to be reorientation for us to, and also come up with like policies, even from the federal government level, that mandates even states on what they should publish in terms of performance of their budgets. We need to be seeing that, and that is how we'll all begin to, analysts will begin to look at it, analyze and see, so that states, even amongst themselves, there can be very positive competition. That this state, this is what they've been able to achieve from their budget, and this is the impact. That is what can drive the economy. We need to begin to see those plans, that to set up factory, why should I put my factory in Lagos? Should it be in Lagos State? Should it be in Ogun State, Ondo State? Those are the conversations that I think that plans would be able to generate.
Which is one of the reasons that some people reference what the Lagos State government did that attracted a Dangote refinery, for instance, which moved its plan from Ogun State to Lagos because there was a plan. That's what you're saying.
Correct.
Okay. It's okay.
Right. We're still talking about state government budgets. If I could put this to you, Mr. Shokwiton, we took a look at, earlier when we were talking, we talked about how we're still working with several budgets. I think that's what you said. Like, we still have 2024.
I'm yet to come. I don't have a question on that.
It's three, don't go to seven.
So what I'm really trying to say is like, do we have, when states present, we're talking about Tinubu's budget now, but let's just finish dealing with these states first. Do we have a situation where states also have that lacuna, where you have all your budgets are dealing with several budgets? You've not finished with 2024, you have 2025. How do they prioritize what to spend on? How do they know which money to spend when? If, as at 2025, when you're presenting your at the end of 2024, if you're presenting your 2025 budget, you say you still have 30% left of the previous budget that you have not finished spending and you're presenting. So at the end of 2025, when you're presenting the 2026 budget, you still have maybe another 40% left. So how do you know what projects are you spending what on? It's confusing, really. Do we have that with the states as well? I don't know, because we have said we don't scrutinize the states, so we probably don't even know that these things are,
or whether or not we even care.
Do we have that situation with states as well?
You know, this conversation is multifaceted, and I don't think that you can deal with the economic analysis, data review part without looking into the political structure issue.
Yeah.
And you know, the reason that he alluded to it, Doctor alluded to it, the reason we have so much opacity at the state level is because, let's be honest, you know, the relevance of the subnational governments to the ordinary Nigerian is not quite as significant in their minds
as the presidency,
as the federal government is.
But that does not reduce the impact of the trillions that they collect.
Absolutely, exactly. So you see that now.
So if we are going to scrutinize the government, maybe we should just give everything to the federal government.
I mean, and
then we will now face
the federal government.
We will now finish them off workload. So the issue, the point is that gap, you know, between impact and the presence in mind of the citizen versus actual activity at that level in terms of the trillions, you know, subsidy removal, and we all hear that revenues that are shared when FAC allocation happens, it's threefold increase in some cases, what the states are now getting, right? However, because of the political structure problem, you have a situation where the provisions of the law, there are very copious provisions in the law that speaks to accountability. The Fiscal Responsibility Act and all of that makes provisions for when and how the budgeting process is supposed to go. But the states don't necessarily comply with that, and nobody really holds them to account.
Give us concern, Mr. Okwande.
It should, but like we're all discussing, a lot of us will not have understanding of what the states are doing. Maybe for few of us that reside in Lagos, you can speak to maybe few developmental things. And to what Segun said, you are supposed to be doing something of 100 million, enjoying something of 100 million. And here they are sharing something of less than 10 million with you. Because you are seeing that few development, you ask yourself, they are working. I saw a lot of governors that came with the position, even when they got those funds, saying that when you talked about foreign exchange, the value of the money they are getting now is not commensurate to what they were getting 3-4 years ago because of the foreign exchange. And I asked myself, are we spending dollars or we are spending naira? And they said the cost of things has actually been on the other side. I think what this discussion is actually throwing out this morning is that there should be more focus on the state government. When we are not focusing on the state, how much can we do on local government with the autonomy that the federal government is giving to them to get their funds directly? These are the people, and that's why we said we need to, like what Segun said, I allude to that, first have reorientation of our mind to speak to people to say, ask questions from your local government area. Prune the budget of the states. What are the capital infrastructure that your local government has actually entrenched to carry out this particular year? What is the measure? Analysts should concentrate less on the federal, and let's see how individually we can engage the local government chairman. From there, you'll be talking to the state. And that's why I said, from my own analogy, this issue of insecurity can be addressed if we change the strategy of top to bottom and make it to be bottom to top. That is, take governance closer to the people. Where we are having majority of those problems are suburbs where there are lack of governance, and people, there is no police station there. People don't even understand what is actually going on. It's failure of governance that is actually propelling some of those things. So we should have a reorientation of our mind. Possibly the NOA, if they are still alive.
Oh, they've been active for a bit.
Okay, for a bit. So we should start having that reorientation to say, concentrate more on the local government, concentrate more on the states.
My apologies. Isn't that, okay, maybe I should bring that to you, Dr. Ebu. Isn't that what the president has been trying to do? It's as if every opportunity the president has, he's talking about local governments.
Yes.
He engaged traditional rulers, talk to your governors to activate local government. He was having a conversation with the state government, state government, activate local government, the Supreme Court judgment. And so it's as if it is an agenda for the president, and it seems like he's all by himself.
Thanks. I think
because I'm sorry, I haven't heard about the Nigerian Governors Forum in a while, which is supposed to be a club of mates who from time to time compare notes.
Peer review.
I think I would use that word peer review now, since that's the technical language. You know, if we, those are gaps that every Nigerian should be probing. But the attention on in my opinion, the attention, our conversation is about 2026 budget beyond the numbers. The attention is, in my opinion, too much
on the center.
On the center. It's like my child is failing in school, it's my fault. Am I the one sitting in class?
Yeah, so I think that it still speaks to how the orientation, you know, even from the media when we start, like now that we're going to 2026, how many of the state governors or the commissioner for finance are we also going to listen to via some of this program to come and discuss their plans and the budget for the states? You know, that's where the interest will also start from. They come and analyze it. And next year, when you are speaking to them, last year, you told us when we discussed, these are the things we are going to do. This is the plan for the states. So even if the pilot phase, if it's 3-4 states across different regions, we start to monitor those states and we begin to see. Secondly, the president, there's a limit to what he can do. If there's no policy, there needs to be a law such that if after, you know, like we have the Fiscal Responsibility Act, that after a certain period, if you don't release your performance, but maybe after 6 months, just like you have always view states or the government like a company, there's a law, SEC rule for quoted companies that after 2 months of the end of the year, if you don't publish your result, or 3 months, then there will be a fine. All these things, other climes, why it works is that there's already a rule, and the governor knows that if continue to flout the rule, some things can be done against me. But for now, even if they don't give us the numbers, they don't implement the budget, there's actually no major penalty that we can point to, or a fine that the state government will begin to see that will paint them in that black light. So there's a need for, even from the federal level, if it's the National Assembly, to come up with that framework that would be so clear to all the state government that these are the rules that you think you need to follow for accountability. And if you are not doing it, we should publish that out of these states, out of 25, 26 states, because those are going to be indicators that will be used. Out of 25 states, 6 states have published their performance. And when some of the World Bank, some of the investors are coming, when they are doing their ranking, based on accountability, transparency, which state is ranking first. By the time they begin to see that, you know, most politicians, all these indicators, they are really very big on them.
So, but they are not big on the welfare of their people.
That's what I'm saying. We put together a structure that would enforce them, that as they are working towards achieving those indicators, we are also feeling the impact.
Ayo, just to speak to something. I belong to the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria, and I know there is a program put together, they call it Accountability Index, speaking to the subnational to measure what they are doing. I have privilege of relating with some of the people in that committee, and they tell you the tug of war to have access to information. The last few years that I've always been listening to their reports, they've never had 36 states reports. Maybe you talk about 10, 12, that they're actually, you know, having access to that data. Is to tell you how interesting some of those things can be. Before now, and Ayo will allude to this, there are periods where state governors will call professionals, institutes, put them together, criticize us on this budget. Is that still happening? The answer is no.
I want to know which republic that happened.
And I want to say, if federal government must put those laws in place for states to actually come out and give. Are they doing it? He who come to equity must come with clean hands. We are already complaining of federal government not giving us a precise budget, and you want to, enforce on the state to make sure they do the right thing. You must first do. In fact, if it is copy and paste that the state will want to do from the federal, they should copy something right. But they are not leading by example, and that's my worry. We can go back to those areas at which we do it. I know those days they will invite, when I was chairman of one of the chapters in Lagos, they will invite you, come and critique the budget, so that next year we can tell you what we have achieved, where we have as plan for next. But those things are not. So all we read is go, even when you have the figures, just see the figures, whether it's impacting on the people or not. Nobody has, because aside the figures, people can now match to it to say, sir, we learned you carried out road infrastructure of so much, with so much number of this particular thing. But I can tell you that in my area, the road that was fixed that should have lasted for 3 years is already giving way. So such contractor need to be penalized, because I'm sure there must be a bond to tell you that there is a guarantee on what you are producing. So it's not about the figure, because I can roll in 1 trillion as my revenue, expend the 1 trillion on capital project, but the project that has actually been done will actually be repeated again next year, which means I've not done anything. So these are areas that we need to start talking about when we are addressing the issue of budget.
We're talking about it now. Anyway.
Certainly, we're talking about it now. But, we did say focus is too much on the center. But then everybody, I think all are at fault, really. Even the state governments, too, they look at the center. At the end of the day,
look at the center. That's where the gravity is.
They look at the center, even though they present their own budgets before the federal budget is presented. But they still, they look at the center and then they start making the adjustments later. I
so it's like walking back.
So, but we have the revenue assumptions. With the 58.18 trillion naira budget, there are a lot of assumptions that the president made, assuming an oil price of $64.85 per barrel, and production of 1.84 million barrels per day. If I could come to you, how realistic are these assumptions given Nigeria's historical production trends and the global oil market volatility?
Yeah, so looking at the numbers, so you see at 64, so look at the average currently this year, be around 58, 60, and the projection is that it may also go lower, because once the Russia-Ukraine war, they're able to solve that, that would increase.
I like that if.
Yeah, so scenario-based. So if that happens, then we should see low oil prices. And we look at what President Trump is also, he knows that the impact of energy price on inflation, the U.S., so would want crude oil to be low. So at 64, I think is the government is very optimistic. But when you also now look at the production volume at 1.8, I say it's overly optimistic, because we look at the numbers, about 1.6 million barrels per day based on the GDP number that was released as at September. That's almost 200,000 barrels per day based on the production. So I think that we need to also see what is government, the plan. Sometimes when we look at all these numbers, like you said, calling numbers, what is the plan to ensure that this happens? We know, yes, insecurity has reduced, production has increased, but
production of what?
Production of crude has increased.
My apologies. Let's talk about other production.
I was going to say that too.
Because you gentlemen in your field, economists, have told us that one way that a nation reverses its forex volatility is by becoming a producing
nation, yes,
and not just a consuming nation. So, with or without the numbers, what would you say Mr. Shukriton, that we have done in year 2025 as a nation or even as subnationals to encourage production that can reduce our dependence or that can reduce the pull on forex, which is hampering Nigeria's currency?
Precious little, sadly. In terms of the bigger picture, if you talk about production, it has to be cross-sectoral and broad-based. So you are looking at who are the largest producers in any economy. It's the SMEs, right? So if we're able to empower them, to get them to do more, to be more productive, to improve productivity, then you will see a natural reduction in dependence on imports and all of that.
Do you see any of the 37 budgets
speaking to that?
Speaking to this?
There will always be some tokenistic measure here and there talking about these things.
So essentially, when you say tokenistic,
yes,
it means that we are not really paying attention to developing
the things that we need to be paying. I keep using the word intentional because things don't happen by accident. In nature, in the physics, there is a law of inertia. Things will remain as they are unless some sort of force is applied to it. If it's moving, the only way to stop it is to apply force to it. If it's immobile, the only way to move it is to apply force. So you've got to be intentional. Now, So now, let me give us just a slight insight to how important this point you've made is. I don't think a lot of people realize that the reason inflation has dropped so quickly, in quotes, let's forget the rebasing and all of the controversies around that. The reason the price of certain staples, especially the ones that we import quite a bit of, has come down, and therefore affecting inflation, can largely be tied to Dangote. Just that one
private sector practitioner
and that incident, which you can't completely credit to government. Yes, government supported him, but because if you look at the numbers that were released by the regulatory authority, the Farouk, MP,
NMDPRA,
the numbers are always the acronyms are always confusing. You find that it's about on the average about 30% to 40% of our local consumption needs were supplied by Dangote, right? And I had always maintained before Dangote came on board that the government, as soon as Dangote has the capacity, we must stop imports. Because as soon as you do that, you shave off 40% of the pool on the forex that you are talking about. 40%. If 40% of the pool on the market goes off, imagine what would happen to price just based on the laws of demand and supply. Right? So we need to be extremely intentional about getting SMEs and even the manufacturers and all of that to produce more, because that will immediately impact on the rest of the economy.
When you say that it was the private initiative of the private sector practitioner, of course. But then the land didn't belong to him. Sure. So essentially saying there is some kind of enabling environment.
Absolutely.
I was at a cold room yesterday and I had reason to speak with the man who was either supervising or who owned the business. And it's a place where wholesalers go to stock up. I was having a conversation with him. He said, look, the brand I'm buying, that people are buying from me, 100% Nigerian. This is poultry. And seafoods, 100% Nigerian. It wasn't in Ikoyi. It's just in a suburb, not too far from Channels TV here. So the enabling environment is crucial for businesses to thrive.
Exactly.
Now, if one private sector practitioner is able to do this in the petroleum industry, the president has hinted at X number of hectares of land. I don't want to mention the figure that I know. And we heard that last year we were supposed to do 500,000 hectares. It seems as if we are 100% in the increase this time around. I'm not sure yet, but we'll find out. There are those who have said that the agricultural sector is our opportunity, our benefit. And I don't think that one is federal government, because Now state get land, forgive my French.
Right.
So I go back to the states.
Yeah, and I was going to say that, is there not too much burden with these projections? Can we take off some burden from, oil production and the oil industry, and just, if we focus on, getting some projections from other sectors, maybe we'll begin to work harder to ensure that it happens.
Yeah, Joke, my response to that is there are basic things expected of the government, both the state and the federal, to do. And I always tell one that care to listen that security is strategic. All is strategic if we must achieve this development, production that we're talking about. Don't forget that one of the factors of production is your proximity to raw materials. When at this point we know more of illegal miners having access to our raw materials that we should be having access to for the production and beneficiary of the masses, where few are actually having access to. How do you intend to grow with that? 2, can people be guaranteed that security to have access to farm? A lot of hectares, I stand to be corrected. A lot of people that we know are predominantly into agriculture are still in IDPs. How do we manage that for them to go back to base? These are issues, and that's why I keep saying that as much as we want to speak so much of grammar, so much of figures, the fundamental, and I think Mr. President was actually addressing that in the budget by giving so much to defense, to make sure that we have that. If we don't address insecurity as far as this country is concerned, whatever figures we're seeing will just be rhetorics. And the governors will continue to have this blame game. And that's why I've been of the opinion. I listened to Mr. President saying we are going to be intentional about state policing. And I'm actually monitoring that because that's the aspect we need to go. If, like some of the things we enjoy, let me say in Lagos, is continuity of one man's vision of coming up with RRS, neighborhood watch. We even have Lagos State Trust Fund and the likes, where people, and they give support to the regular police to make sure that we are secure. And that's why you have influx of people coming to states. I ask myself the question, when the state governor meet at the National Economic meeting, what are we discussing? I think somebody should be coming up to say, guy, you are putting so much pressure on my state. What are you doing? I have idea of the figures that you're getting. I expect that people have been looking at ways where states where we travel to, I'm sure people live as far as Ilorin and work in Lagos. Because there are reasons, outside our country, because there are channels, trains, that can move you at the shortest possible time, so you can reside in Ilorin and be working in Lagos. But what do we have here? Is the rail system that's available for you to stay at that area and come to Lagos? We know the handshake between Lagos and Ogun and Oyo State, so you can move. I know people that stay in Oyo State, in Ibadan, and work in Lagos. They come with a train by 6:30 and by 4 they are back to, and they do that on a daily basis. And they will tell you that it's favorable for them because the cost of accommodation in Ibadan is cheaper compared to what they pay in Lagos. So they relocated there. So you can imagine you are reducing the pressure. These are things I expect the subnationals to be engaged. When you go to FAC meeting, let those states that are actually being pressured ask other state governors. As a matter, I want people to come to your state. If my own area is considered as the commercial nerve center, let your state be known as the residential area.
Is that not what the Southwest Commission? I think those are the kind of the Dawn Commission. Those are the things that they discuss.
They should take it beyond discussing it. Let's see the reality. We can applaud them of the rail system that is actually happening, in the Southwest region. But we should take more. We should be more intentional. Let me use the word of Shego. For the state governor to ask themselves, in fact, the figures we don't know of, they know of it. So when you look at the size of the population of a state and the allocation is getting, you should look at ways at which see, a lot of people wants to go back to their states and make development. But the question they first ask is, I am not guaranteed the security I enjoy, like when I'm in Lagos,
or
Abuja, or the infrastructure I enjoy. People will come and tell you that there is traffic in Lagos, but they keep coming to Lagos because there are other things that attract them. What are the governors, I think Ayo too said it, what questions are they asking themselves, having understanding of the figures that they are all collecting, to see how they develop their states?
We have to ask them what questions they are asking themselves. Dr. Ebo, we have just about 3 minutes to conclude this, so I want to go around the room on this one. You said something the other time that, you know, before you ask for more money, account for the one that you collected before. Yeah. But do you think, how should we be addressing that with the ministries, departments, and agencies of the federal government of Nigeria? Because do you think they answer those questions? Should we hold their money until they are able to satisfactorily report what they have spent?
You know, it's easy. We've seen these things in private sector, and why we call it controls. And once there's also penalty. So if you know that there's something that you will lose for not adhering to a policy, and there's implication for that, the governors or the states will adhere to those policies. And it's really very important, because all these things is fundamentals. We can look at all these numbers, but if we don't take care of states, there needs to be more collaborations among state governors.
Okay.
And that's what we call economic of scale. So if this rail system that we're talking about, I think is done by the federal government, but states, there can be another light rail by the states from here to
going to another question.
And the private sector should be able to help with that.
Mr. Shukuto, what are your thoughts?
Well,
MDAs, yes.
I think that at the end of the day, everything that we've discussed so far, we're not hitting the fundamental issues for me. You know, I spoke about the issue of, as you're talking about the budget, I'm talking about accountability from the MDAs, from the state governments, and all of that. The real problem we have as a country today is our political structure. And the president talks about it. He alluded to it, and you also did repeatedly. He speaks about the state police. He speaks about local government autonomy, you know, and all of that. But I have seen too little action from him. You know, having been an advocate, very passionate advocate of the issue of whatever name you want to call it, restructuring, devolution of powers, whatever you want to call it, before he became president. In fact, before the APC came into power in 2014, this was a very strong plank of their policy statement and their promise to Nigerians as what should make them attractive. It's been how many years? 8 years? 10 years now of the APC, and now 2.5 going to 3 years of this president. When are we going to have a conversation about reversing the structure of the country to ensure that the resources, where the resources lie, control is given over those resources to the people so that they can then contribute to the center? Because the reason we're having all of this conversation is that what is happening is unnatural. You can't have resources in a place and then somebody in the center somewhere is the one that controls it, that collects everything from everybody and then shares it.
Everything is even wrong with our structure.
It's all a mess.
If the state government owns the land, why am I having to give my land as a state governor to the control what is under the land?
Yes.
Why am I giving it to the control of somebody
else somewhere.
under the land?
No, exactly.
That's this political structure.
We have to fix that.
No. I don't understand. Maybe it's right, but I just don't understand.
No, it doesn't work anywhere in the world.
I think my own submission to this is there is a gap. There is no consequences for wrongdoing, and that's why we see a lot of things happening. And people just go scot-free because they know once they do it, you can do whatever. I want a situation, whether at the federal, at the state, at the local government, what Dr. Ayo said, when you are not doing it right. I'm sure you know in the private sector, when there are deliverables for you to make. You don't, let me go to finance. You don't retire your IOU. You want to collect more. Who will approve it for you? And because you know nobody will approve your next request without, closing the old one, you do the right thing. And I think that's what will be the game changer if we must allow the MDAs to comply to some of the
It's a very complex dynamic, so to speak, because sometimes it looks like, you all have spoken to one thing. It's like we know the correct order of things, but because the wrong order has been subsistent for, or rather has subsisted for a while, we seem to be pussyfooty about addressing it. But we have to give it to the president, Mr. This present government, Mr. Shokito, because I don't recall any other president in this republic who is as adept about local government autonomy. And I don't recall any president making a statement, categorical statement about state police. Please correct me if I'm wrong.
I give that to him. But we should go beyond
that and make sure
possibly we start putting penalty for governors that are not complying.
Maybe we should even put a penalty for the president. Don't answer. Mr. Olusegun Okwade, Chartered Accountant and Policy Development Analyst, thank you so much for your time this morning. Mr. Segun Shokpito, an economist, thank you. We appreciate your time. As well as Dr. Ayode Jebo, Managing Director and Chief Business Officer, Optimus by AfriInvest. We appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.
Okay.